Cool. All right, we are recording. We are screen sharing. All right, guys. Well, welcome to week 4. We've got a very straightforward game plan for today. In that we have got part 3 of project 1 to critique. Let me take. I'm in the obviously the D2L class right now. I'm going to jump over to the content area and give you guys kind of a preview of game plan for today. So within week 4. We have got really these 3 agenda items. We're going to do our project 1 banner designs critique. I will jump into the Google Drive in a few moments and we'll start downloading those and giving those a look. We're going to take a look, or we're going to talk about part 3 of project 1. That will be the creation of your style guides. So there's going to be 2 facets to that. I am going to begin by showing you guys the actual assignment sheet. We'll go through it so we understand the specs. I'll show you a few examples from prior semesters. And then what I did for you guys is I made a walkthrough video. It's about 26 minutes long, but I'm basically walking through all of the code that you'll need to put that together. I just put that up on YouTube, and it should serve the purpose. And you guys can obviously watch as many times as you need to complete it, but it shouldn't be too bad. It's a very straightforward assignment. But before we wrap up today, I want to make sure that you guys understand what that looks like and what my expectations are for that. And then I've linked out to a Google Fonts demo as well, which you may decide to use for the style guide. It will be up to you. I'll talk about like the purpose that serves when we get there. Yeah, in fact, maybe what I will do, because our critique today is going to be pretty fast and furious. There are 18 of you guys in the class. And by the time that I'm done talking about the project portion of the class, we're looking at about 90 minutes of class time. And if you divide 90 by 18, that gives us a whopping 5 minutes for each of these banner designs to be critiqued. So it's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, it's going to be fine though. We're recording. You can always go back and watch this. But I do want to make sure that we have enough time though to talk about the style guides. So maybe what I'll do is begin with that. And again, kind of talk about that, let you know what the expectations are. So yeah, let's do that. Slight change of gears from what I had planned, but I actually feel like that's a better use of our time because we'll just get that out of the way and we won't have to necessarily rush any further. Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll go slightly out of order here. So what I'm going to talk about actually to begin with right now is the style guide portion of the project. So this is part 3. Part 1 obviously was when you guys wrote the proposal in HTML. Part 2, we're going to critique here in just a few moments. Those are the banner designs. But part 3 is where you begin to figure out how you want the type or the text in your website to look. And we do that by creating both an HTML document and a cascading style sheet, CSS doc, that we are going to use not only for this portion of the assignment, but that CSS document is going to be used to really build the design of the website over the next few weeks as well. So it's an important part and it's a useful part. Like we're going to build upon this. So let me, I guess, begin by showing you the spec sheet. I'll show you real quick like the first maybe minute of the walkthrough. And I do want to also show you guys some examples again from prior semesters. So as always, like the other parts of the project that we're working on, I've got a specific project spec sheet for you. And this part is no different. So, so part 3 is designing a style guide for your website. And this is, again, it's going to be a functional style guide. I mean, you as designers, you may have already built style guides for other projects where essentially you're defining the way that the type or the colors look. This is certainly that, but it also involves writing the code and then being able to recycle that code over the next few weeks. So ultimately, and actually I want to clarify as well, like see this term here, the design system. The design system is essentially a web term for creating a style guide. Okay, so if you hear that term and you're kind of like wondering like, what the heck does that mean, Pete? It is, it's the same thing as saying a style guide. Okay, but essentially we are creating a style guide that should define how the following tags look in HTML and we'll look using a CSS document to control their appearance. So if you notice here, there are several lines of code, 5 different H tags, H1 through H5. There's a paragraph tag that opens and closes here. There's a block quote. I'll discuss what that means in a moment. There are things like ordered lists and unordered lists. Again, we'll discuss. But these are all of the things that we're going to write in HTML. And I'm literally giving you the code right here. All of this is the code. Now, you want to hear me out on this. Don't copy and paste that code into Visual Studio Code. When you copy and paste from Word docs or PDFs, there can be, you can really get like your spacing can get messed up, and extra characters, especially if it's coming from a Word document, will get injected to your code. And it ends up being more problematic and more time consuming to fix all of the extraneous stuff that comes along than it is to hand type it. And I would even suggest, just as beginners, learning this stuff for the first time, it's not a bad thing to actually hand code that. It'll be good practice for you guys. And all in all, I mean, what is this, about 20 lines of code? It's no big deal. But ultimately here, in your project root folder, which we've worked with last week with the proposal, you're going to create an HTML file that's going to be named styleguide.html. And you're going to create a CSS style guide file called style.css. And you're going to link those. And I walk you through that process of doing both of those things in the video that I made, as well as linking the two documents together. Okay. You'll use the CSS file to define the typographical style for all of those above tags we just talked about. Okay, so you can define your fonts, your colors, sizes, weights, kerning, all of those things for all of those elements above. And an example would be something like this. You might define a font family, font style, color, font weight, font style, letter spacing. And again, in that walkthrough recording that I made, I go through all of these in detail and discuss with you. And these are probably things that you're familiar with anyway, just based on the Code Academy lesson that you did for this week for the CSS. Okay, so this will mark the first week that you're not getting a Code Academy assignment from me, but rather you're doing a very specific coding assignment based on a video that I'm making for you. And the large majority of what we'll do for the rest of the semester will be that. I think I've got like one more Code Academy thing for you guys to do. So, but again, you're reading through this, there are probably things that don't make sense. That's okay. Again, I've got the screen recording that I made for you that goes through it all, and we'll walk you through it pretty painlessly, I believe. Let me show you what this looks like. And let's see, I'm going to just, oh, shoot, I should not have closed that. I think that was our D2L class. Let me open up a tab here again and get back in there. Let's see. All right, cool. So let me show you a couple of examples here. So I actually downloaded from a few semesters ago a few examples earlier today to show you guys. Let's see. Bear with me. There we go. Okay, cool. So I will show you an example here of what Alexandra's site style guide looked like, and then I'll show you an example of her final project. I actually showed you her final project once before, but probably worth looking at one more time here. So this is an example of what the finished assignment would look like, wherein the student has added her 5 examples of headings, paragraph type, block quotes, and an ordered and unordered list. And then she styled all of these things using a style sheet. I guess I can just open it up in Visual Studio Code for you guys so you can see that as well. It might be helpful. There we go. There we go. So you can see here. You can see here that she is defining things like her H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, paragraph, block quote. And a block quote, in case you're wondering like what that is, again, I go into a detailed explanation, but a block quote would be what you might, those of you who have worked in print media, it's what you would know as a pull quote. So, a sentence or less of information that's pulled from the article and typically highlighted on the side of the page. Okay. Again, I go into a detail of that, but otherwise, yeah, this is what her style guide code in the style sheet actually looks like. Also in the walkthrough, I go through the difference between what an unordered list is and an ordered list. That would be another thing that we haven't talked about yet that you might be wondering about. Let's see here. I feel like there was one more thing I wanted to show you guys before we jumped into the critique. Let's take a look one more time at that list of bullet points in week 4. Let's see here. No, maybe that was it. Yeah. Oh, I did want to at least open up the link for the walkthrough. That was the other thing. So this is a link to that walkthrough that I made you guys. Again, I want to say it was 26 minutes by the time it was all said and done. But it just goes out to my YouTube page. There it is. That's what it looks like when it's all done. But again, it's a pretty straightforward walkthrough.
All right, folks. So this is,
there you go. That will literally, from the very beginning, starting from scratch, starting from opening up your starter file and generating the new page from it, walk through it, from the again from its creation. So I am curious next week. I would love to get some feedback from you guys in terms of how that treated you, because that is the format that I'm likely going to be using for all of the coding demos for the semester. So, certainly if you guys have recommendations or things that can be done to improve that, I would love to know. All right, cool. Being that we now have that little order of business taken care of, we can very much focus here. Oh, one more thing. Sorry. For those who are interested in using Google fonts within your style guide, there is a couple of resources here on how to use Google Fonts. Now, Google Fonts are not a requirement on this project, but I'm going to recommend that you strongly consider using them. We are limited as web designers to the fonts that we can use inside our project. You may know this, but in case you don't, let's talk. Within the world of web, we have what are called web-safe fonts. Web-safe fonts are fonts that are installed by default on essentially all computers, both Mac and PC by default. It's not a big list, surprisingly, of fonts that are shared across really all computers. The reason why that's important is because if you as a designer choose a font that you have on your computer that nobody else has, and they view your website, it's going to default to Times Roman. It's going to look unstyled. It's not a good look. So it is potentially important that if you want to expand beyond just the basics like Arial and Times Roman and the basic default fonts, that you expand your ability to do so using Google Fonts. Google Fonts is free. They have several hundred fonts to choose from that are much more robust than your default system fonts. But again, with our limited time, meeting only an hour and 45 minutes, I would normally just show you guys this, but I put in a walkthrough as well as an article on how to do this. It is, I assure you, quite easy. It literally requires copying and pasting a few lines of code, but don't let that scare you. Okay, if you want to use Google Fonts in your project, I encourage you to do so, and these are very easy resources to follow. Okay. That was the last thing that I wanted to just sort of talk about in terms of orders of business. Now we can actually jump into our banner designs critique. So, I may ask you, it's been a week since we met last. I might ask you again, like, what's the subject and the audience of your project, just as a reminder. But some things that we'll be critically evaluating on these is, do all 4 banners have a consistent feel? That's the first thing I'm going to be looking at. How does the use of color, type, and image contribute to your overall design? And is there a strong typographical hierarchy? If you're not familiar with the concept of typographical hierarchy, I will certainly point it out as we're moving along, both when I see an example of strong hierarchy and hierarchy that can use some improvement. Okay. But again, this is going to be pretty rapid fire. We got about 5 minutes to evaluate each of these. If I am able to get through a particular set of banners in less than 5 minutes, I will absolutely open it up for you guys to give each other some feedback as well. I would love that. And I should be able to. I don't necessarily think looking at 4 banners is going to each take a full 5 minutes each. So, yeah, why don't we, I'm going to go ahead and open up the Google Drive and get to those banners. I will likely just preview them through here. Again, with only 5 minutes, it would be awesome if we don't have to wait for anything to download. So if it's previewing differently than what you are used to seeing on your own computer, please let me know. Okay. Let's see. Go. All right, so I'm in the project 1, part 2 area. And again, AI files or Photoshop files are fine. I will have to download the zip files. That's fine. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But here, let's see. Jean-Luc, let's take a look here at yours first. And I should be able to just preview these. Let's see. Google Drive does a decent job of previewing Photoshop files. Okay, cool. Let's see here. What I will likely do with these before providing feedback is kind of like cycle through them all. So let's just kind of get an idea. Okay, cool. So, okay, cool. All right. I will say that from a standpoint of consistency, they do feel good. Obviously the white border around there helps with that. The placement of the type, the color of the type, the treatment of the images, all of those things are nice and consistent. I have very little in terms of suggestions here, but I'm going to download these real quick. And I will make a couple of very minor suggestions that I think can be used to enhance these. And shoot, I might have to, let's see, I might have to log in to my Adobe account. Let's see on this computer. Hopefully not. Let's see. Okay, awesome. All right, so a couple of things. My biggest suggestion with these would perhaps be a suggestion that is going to help separate the text from the backgrounds a little bit. Okay. So between these, we have some backgrounds that are more dark. Like I would say in general, this type is laying across areas of dark more than it is light. But then there were other banners. In fact, I'm going to download one more of these. There were others that were more light, like this one, or this one, or even this one. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and download. Maybe I will do, in fact, I'm going to grab this one and the last one. Okay. So here's my thought, very, very straightforward. And that would be to add some additional separation between the text and the background. Let's get to the last one as well. What can we do to maybe add a little bit of separation? One of the things that comes to mind here would be potentially adding a rectangle, and we can treat this differently. It does not have to by any means be this intense. Hang on, let me collapse some of these panels so you guys can see this. I'd love all these things to get into the recording. So, oh shoot, no, that is separate. Okay, there we go. So, this is obviously a big, bold black bar, which certainly does provide separation, but I do think it also obstructs some of the image. So I'm not necessarily going to suggest that we just put that in there and call it quits. It could be a matter of like lowering the fill on that a little bit so we can still see part of the image. But notice how as I turn that on and off, it's fairly significant in terms of the amount of pop that we get, especially where the of is, or maybe the bottom of the HIS. You guys all see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, cool. So another example of this might be like in the sound and influence area, especially here because it ends up being fairly light background. Now, in this case, we could also get away with, if we wanted to, just changing the color of this. Doesn't necessarily have to be a dark bar all the time. Like what happens, for example, if we make it light. Sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? Like I used a black or a dark rectangle on a dark background to create that separation. But in this case, I'm doing the opposite. We've got a light background. I'm using a light rectangle to create that separation. So again, you've got some options there, but I do feel like that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I can read sound and influence, right? But can you see how just adding that element really aids in that just popping forward and becoming the focal point? So that's my recommendation, John Luke, on this. I've got one more small recommendation. It's a very minor thing, but I do think it'll add some consistency on here. So I noticed that two of your banners have very high contrast black and white images. So the black, like the dark black pixels are dark and the white pixels are very white. There's hard contrast. Some of them though are very muted like this. So our lights aren't quite pure white. They're sort of a soft gray. And the dark areas, the deepest shadows are not pure black. This is something else you could consider tweaking. And you could do it one of two ways. One way would be taking the hard contrast and bringing it down. And I'll show you how to do that real quick. Or the opposite would be going to the images with the lesser contrast and boosting the contrast. So here's how I recommend that you do this. I would do it in your layers using an adjustment layer. So a little half pie icon in the bottom of your layers panel. You can click on this, and I actually would not recommend using brightness and contrast. I never recommend that in Photoshop, guys, because it's too limited. It takes a lot of the control away from you as an artist. Rather, anytime that I'm adjusting lights and darks, I prefer using levels. The reason for that is when you open up the levels adjustment, you have access to controlling the light pixels, the medium gray pixels, and the dark pixels. So you can do all of these things separately. And you have a second set of sliders down here that you can use to add gray to both white and black. So it's a far more powerful thing than just the single slider that you get in brightness and contrast. So for this image, for example, if you decided to make all these images consistent, but maybe you wanted to dull the high contrast ones, we dull things by using the second slider here. So we could dull down the whites by just adding a little gray to them. We could dull down the blacks by adding a little gray to them. And now all of a sudden, that is a much lower contrast image. And we can, the beautiful thing about this is not a permanent adjustment. An adjustment layer lives in your layers like this and can be turned on and off at any point in time. It's not permanent, okay? I'll show you one more example of that though. Like here, we could potentially, if you decided that you did like the high contrast images and not the duller ones, the opposite would be, again, adding an adjustment layer. So I'm doing a brightness contrast. No, not brightness contrast. I'm doing a levels. And with the levels, now I'm using the top set of sliders to potentially maybe boost the whites a little bit and boost the black pixels a bit. And now we have a much higher contrast image. Now I do want to be careful when I'm doing that because an adjustment layer will affect everything underneath it. So right now it's affecting the text and the rectangle. I really would just want to make sure that that adjustment layer is sitting above the photo, so it's not affecting the text and stuff. But so that would be an example of darkening things. Personally, I kind of like the muted ones, but I would say use your judgment on that. Okay, so that's my 2 cents on that. We definitely, because I jumped into Photoshop, we hit the 5-minute mark on that. But I hope, John, looked at that provides you a little bit of guidance. I think you're really close to calling this done. They're very nice. Just again, consider whether it's you use these rectangles or not. You need something to, again, separate that text and add some contrast. And then the only other thing I see that could be improved would be making sure that all 4 black and white images have similar levels of contrast between the lights and the darks. All right. Cool. Let's see what is next here. Okay, the next couple are zipped, so just give me a moment. I will download these. Okay, perfect. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and make a preview of these first, and then we can potentially talk about them. Okay. Cool. All right, so some of the things that I think that work out well in here, I like that we have, from a consistency standpoint, I like the typeface being consistent. I like, or I should say the font being consistent. And I like the way that you're using a solid color background between these. I would say that be willing on the intro one here to add some separation, kind of like we talked about a moment ago, perhaps a bar. And it probably could be a solid color bar that will get this feeling similar to the others that have some solid color background. I would also recommend here that either the red in the background of the Nintendo Switch go away, or we add some color in at least PlayStation or Xbox. I understand why you're not, because you're pulling the color from the actual system, so I totally get it. But where I'm going with that suggestion is that it feels inconsistent, that this one has that big bright red background and the others really don't have any color. So if it feels weird to you putting color in these backgrounds, maybe just go to a solid white background behind the Nintendo Switch one. I just feel like that will get them all to jive a little bit better. Let's see. Yeah, otherwise, let's see. Probably, this is probably the most nitpicky thing I can say in this, but I think it's worth talking about. If we look at the PlayStation 5, this is close to the system and close to edge, but there's a comfortable amount of breathing room on either side. And I would say the same thing here. We got a decent, that's comfortable. I do feel like here on Nintendo Switch, maybe we get a little bit tighter than we need to. And I mean a little. I'm probably only talking about 5-10 pixels tops. I would maybe consider just shrinking down on the Nintendo Switch text like a point size or 2 at the max. Okay? If you don't want to do that because the text is the same size across all the pages, bump it over just a little bit to the right and then just shrink down the Nintendo Switch system image a little bit. That'll create that little bit of space there. And then finally, I would say the same thing here about gaming platforms. I feel like we're a little bit tight on the left and right. Maybe just shrink this text down 1 or 2 point sizes to accommodate that. But we definitely, again, can't stress enough, we definitely need some kind of a color or something behind this to separate it from the background. Probably just a white bar at like half opacity, something along those lines. Or the other option would be adding, could be a hard drop shadow, but since none of the other ones have that, I don't know that it's the best way to go. But I will show you guys 2 of my favorite ways to separate type using drop shadows in a non-drop shadowy way, if that makes any sense. Because I do think drop shadow can look kind of cheesy. But if I come in here, making sure that the text layer is selected and go into the drop shadow area, and I apply drop shadow, one of 2 things. Either A, make the distance 0 so that it's literally around the whole thing. Then you can start to bring up the spread and the size a little bit. Against red text though, this is not going to be a great look. Black shadow on red text always looks bad. We can change the color. So I can make it white. By default, it's not going to show up because the blending mode is set to multiply. Multiply only works with dark colors. So we can set this to either screen would work with white or just normal. There we go. And now you can kind of see what that looks like. And at this point, I could potentially boost that up a little bit. And I'm guessing you would agree if I turn this on and off, guys, that it certainly has more separation than it did a moment ago. That might be a little bit more extreme than we need. Again, we can always drop opacity or things like that just to add maybe a little bit of separation, but even still, even with a little bit of separation, I do still feel like that pops more than it did a moment ago. Another way of dealing with this, let me kind of get this back to its default settings where it was. Okay. Another way to deal with this would be what I would call a hard drop shadow. So bringing the spread all the way up, opacity all the way up, and then the size down, and then sort of offset it. Ooh, that's weird. Does that not work in 22? Can you not grab and drag? Oh, that stinks. Well, okay. In every other version of Photoshop, you can actually grab your drop shadow and move around. Looks like we now have to do that manually between using angle and distance, but that's weird. That's always been a Photoshop thing. Weird. All right. Well, anyway, again, maybe not the exact positioning we want on that, but again, I'm guessing hopefully you see that that does create some better separation there. So a couple of small things within these, but really nice start to these banners. And with just a little bit of tweaking on the text like I talked about, I think you'll be in really good shape.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, let's see here. Kubel, let's give yours a look here next. Let's open these. Actually, I'm just going to open these up in preview. If we need to, we can open an Illustrator to make edits. Okay. Cool. Kubel, if you could maybe remind us real quick, what is the subject of your historical website?
Yeah, my subject is the history of Sony PlayStation.
Cool. Okay. All right. Awesome. So a couple of things. First and foremost, I really like the history banner here. I like that a lot. You've got the logo in place there. I love the treatment of the image, like this, sort of monochromatic blue. History pops on that very nicely. I think a similar treatment here, and there's a couple of suggestions I'll give you on how to make that happen, could work out well. I would say be careful about including this many popular titles, and that remember that your pages will only have a maximum of 5 paragraphs. So maybe limit that to just 5 games. That might be something to consider. But I will show you real quick in Photoshop how to do this effect, because I think it would be beautiful if your banners all had they can be different colors, but if they have like that monotone effect, I think that'd be awesome. So here, I'm going to go ahead and actually, let's see if I can actually open up that AI file in Photoshop, because really what I'm going to be doing here is actual image manipulation, which Illustrator is obviously not the best at. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. It may give us our layers. We'll try. Okay. No, not a biggie. I will do this sort of manually. Obviously, I don't have access to your layers, but there are 2 ways that you could go about this. Number one, if you're doing it to the whole, so let's say you find another image for another banner and you want the entire thing to be, like a duotone color treatment. Again, we go to our adjustment layers on the bottom and we add a hue saturation adjustment. Now, when hue saturation comes up, it's a really simple thing to accomplish that technique. You just check the colorize box down here, and that will create a duotone image. From there, if you wanted to match the other banner, there was a much more saturated color. So I'm going to bring the saturation up, and you can start to see how that becomes a much richer red. And then from there, you can also adjust the hue as well, which is cool. So, for each of your banners on your pages, maybe each one has a different hue. Something to think about that could be really cool is that maybe for the popular titles, each sliver here ends up being a different color. So when you do an adjustment layer, it comes with a layer mask. And it's very easy then to mask out that effect on the other things. So if I grab like the polygonal lasso tool and just draw a quick polygon around maybe some of this stuff, and then I can mask that out in the mask here. So I can just fill that with black. If I bring up black as the foreground color, the shortcut would be Alt and Delete. but I know sometimes folks have a hard time with that shortcut. So the long way would be edit, fill, and then choosing from your foreground color. Okay. And then you could potentially do that then for each of the remaining slices here. So I would do another adjustment layer. Hue saturation, I'm just gonna do a few of these just so you can see it. But again, I can colorize, boost up that saturation, tweak the hue maybe. And again, maybe I'll do this second title in here. While I'm going through this, any thoughts on the popular debate in baseball between Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge in terms of MVP? Do you have any baseball fans out there? No, okay. You guys are like, this is a web design class, dude. Enough of the baseball. I get it. It's okay. All right. So again, it would essentially be doing that for these. And again, I wouldn't do them all. I would probably limit yourself to 5 popular titles. But that way, each one could have its own duotone. But whether you take it to that extreme level or not, or just apply a duotone to individual images like this, I think it's a wonderful technique. I think it could be great for just kind of creating a stylization. The last thing that I would recommend for Bella is that I do feel like the height of your banners should be consistent. So notice how these 2 pages here, or these 2 banners are different heights. Oh, I take that back. They are the same height. I don't know why. When I opened them in preview, they looked like they were different heights. So I take that back. You're good. You're good to go. Cool. So it's really just, I think, a color treatment on those. I think it'll be in good shape. Again, really nice start to those.
Thank you.
All right, let's see here. Jennifer, let's give yours a look next. Oh, nice.
On the welcome and the presenters, I put the background a little bit darker because I felt it was too whited out.
Yeah.
So, and then I changed the Women in Creative Workshop to a dark blue to match the same color as the text on the top.
Yeah, yeah. Nice.
So
yeah, this looks wonderful. I mean, I've got one minor suggestion for you.
okay.
In terms of things that are working here, I love that within these banners, you're communicating quite a bit of information. You're showing actual examples of artwork, and repeating that in a very nice, beautiful sort of ambient way. You've got some really nice, consistent like branding and identity with using the logo over and over again. But then from a functionality standpoint, you've got the page headers up in the top corner. And what you made a decision there that I think is an excellent one, using a really clean, readable sans serif font. It stands apart from everything else because everything else is very organic and very flowy and more complex. But because these are so straightforward and clean and professional, they stand out against all of the other visual information. So, just fantastic. So I've got a suggestion that's going to help 2 of these. This one right here, notice how the blow up version, I can start to see some pixelization, which makes sense, right? When you blow up a pixel-based image too large, we can see the pixelization happening. And I could also see it here on the second one. Well, I guess this third one as well. So just a quick tip on those. The blown up copy of those images, I would take those into Photoshop and apply a Gaussian blur to them. So, I mean, I don't have access to your original images here, but actually I might. Those are AI files, right? Let me see if I can get your layers out of there. If I can, I'll do it for one of them, Jennifer, so you can actually see it. Hopefully it gives me layers. If it doesn't, I might be able to do it from Illustrator and just bounce back over here. But the technique itself is definitely going to be a Photoshop thing.
Okay.
Although they may actually have. I'm in Photoshop again. They might actually have a blur these days in Illustrator. I don't know off the top of my head. but I'll just show it to you in Photoshop. It'll take, just a few seconds.
They do have a blur in Illustrator.
Okay, cool. So you might be able to do this then in Illustrator and not have to necessarily, bounce around like I'm doing here. I'm gonna,
Okay.
shoot, these images might not show for me, but it's okay. We'll try it. Okay, yeah, awesome. All right, so I can, well, we'll try it out here in Illustrator. So I'm blowing this up. I'm just selecting the background image. So it's likely under effect, blur. And then Gaussian blur. Cool. So it does exist in Illustrator as well. Basically, what I would recommend that you do is that you blur. I'd go at least 10 pixels. Now, I don't know why the preview's not showing here for me.
It's a mask clipping.
Okay. Gotcha. So we want to get out of the mask.
Unmask it.
Yeah. Let's see.
That one is the hardest one to change.
Yes. Those
And
masks-
I realized I should have done the banners separately.
Yeah, it's okay. There we go. So I double click to get all the way down there. And now I've got the thing selected. So again, just effect, blur, Gaussian blur. Yeah, I don't think I'm still all the way down. Let's see. All right, well, yeah, I'm gonna go in there one more time. I'm just gonna do it in Photoshop because I know I can do it
Okay.
fast and easy. I'm just gonna copy this over Photoshop. Let's see. Yep. No, I think it's still got your flipping mask. Let's see. And then it's on here. Yeah, shoot. Well, So I don't know off the top of my head, Jennifer, how to get that out of there, but here's what we can do. In the class that we have with me tomorrow afternoon,
Okay.
we're gonna have a bunch of work time where we won't be limited by 5 minutes per student. So I will show you this, but basically the long and short of it is I would apply a Gaussian blur to this image, anywhere from 5 to 10 pixels. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna blur it, it's gonna soften it. And because of the way you're using it in this beautiful sort of subtle way in the background, it's not going to be a big deal that it becomes blurry. It'll look better with them slightly blurry and losing the pixelization. That's my only thought here on these. They're beautiful. They're ready to go. Other than that blur. But again, we'll take care of that tomorrow together. It'll be pretty straightforward. And in fact, once I figure that out, guys, I'll end up sharing that with you all just in case you're in the same situation. Also, Jennifer, I'll show you tomorrow, instead of using one of those, the mask, the way you're using it, I'm going to show you how to do what's called a clipping mask. It's an easier thing to be able to modify.
That is what I used.
I think it was I don't think it was a clipping mask, was it?
Yeah, that's the only one I know how to use.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, yeah, we should have been able to modify that. I mean, yeah, I see a clipping group, but I thought it was one of those.
I don't remember how to crop. That's why I'm using the masks.
Okay, cool. So
That's my problem.
Gotcha. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, again, we'll horse around with that. We'll get it, but we were definitely up with our 5 minutes. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah, no problem. Okay, let's see. All right, so let's see. All right, let's see. Jose, it looks like I've got, oh, I see. These are all 4 of them. Okay, cool. Let me download those real quick here as a group. Okay. Okay, nice. All right, here, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get rid of those. Okay. Use that as a TIFF. There we go. Here, I very much just wanted to get these all on the screen together. So let me just do this. Bear with me, guys. I'm on the laptop that I'm not. Yeah, I'll just open them all. That I'm not that familiar from the trackpad on this thing just drives me crazy. I am not skilled at using it yet. All right, so there is a beautiful consistency between these four banners here, Jose. Both in the image treatment, like I love the gradient that you're applying on here, and on here, it's just fantastic. It's a very subtle but very effective way of tying these all together. They're also very just very clean and professional in terms of the way that you're laying out the type on these. It's clean, it's simple, it's straightforward. I think, Jose, I've got one suggestion for you. It's a minor one, but I do think it's important. I feel that there's a couple of these that do have some pixelated background graphics. This one in particular. So there's a few issues with this. Not only is it pixelated, but the person that used this before you saved it as a JPEG. It probably should have been saved as a PNG or a GIF. We'll talk about that just in a few weeks. In fact, when I show you guys how to save images properly for the web, you'll be very critical of images for the web that were saved incorrectly. The reason why I say that this was saved incorrectly at some point in time is if I zoom in, you can see all the kind of junky pixels that are present in here. This is what's called pixel artifacting. This is what happens when people save images for the web using the wrong technique. And that's okay. It's good for you to see it now. But that's an image that I would try to replace. Shouldn't be all that difficult to find an image of a circuit board that you can potentially replace that with. But I would definitely do that. This one's looking good. This is definitely one that does have some pixel artifacting. In fact, this one was probably the victim of being saved as a JPEG one or too many times. It's not a deal breaker, but if you can find a cleaner image of Mario to use in the background, I would probably try and do that. Because by the time that we save this again for the web, it will get even worse. So when we save images for the web, it is generally, not always, but generally a lossy process, meaning we lose quality each time. So that artifacting will get even worse. So if you can, try and find another image of Mario in the background here, but definitely replace the circuit board image. But really nicely done. That's my only suggestion, is to potentially swap out those two background images. Nice work on those. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see, Jacob, let's give yours a look here next. Okay. My window is not expanding enough here for me. Let's try this again. There. Jacob, while I'm opening these, remind us which king that you had chosen for this project.
So it's King David I of Scotland.
Cool.
He reigned in, I believe, 1124 to 1153.
Cool. Okay, here, I'm going to try this through preview because the font on that one was not embedded. But here, well, that one I'll keep open for a moment, but let's just see. Open with preview. Sometimes we can cheat in preview and still see the fonts. There we go. Okay, cool. I'm going to shrink these down. I think I can probably fit all four of these on the screen at once. All right, cool. Let's see here. All right, there are definitely some nice consistent elements here. The treatment of the type on all of them is very nice. Again, love the low opacity rectangle, love the rectangle with the stroke, the little like dingbat embellishments there. I'm torn on the type in terms of the font. Some of it's fine. Early life, no issues there. Here, and some of these letters get a little bit weird. The V looks like a B in both cases. It looks like David
Yeah.
in both these cases. And I mean, like, I don't know, the H is a little bit goofy here as well. Even the one is kind of a little bit funky. So my suggestion there is go through some of the Gothic fonts on DaFont. They have a whole category here of these types of typefaces. If you go to the calligraphy section, you'll find some good ones. The cool thing about this site, actually, no, I don't want the calligraphy. I want, what do they call it? Let's see. There, Gothic. There's actually a few of these. There's a modern, there's a Celtic. But the cool thing about these is that if you want to see what they look like before you use them, especially like with the King David like type, because that was like my biggest criticism was just his name there, the way that looks. Let's see, I should be able to, well, I'll type it out the first time and I'll copy and paste it. But you can click on any of these and then type in your actual text. Copy that, and you can submit that and it will show you what it actually looks like. Which is helpful because then you don't have to like download a bunch and install them and try them. Bear with me, guys. My puppy is here next to me taking a nap, and she is stretching and making all sorts of noises. So, but yeah, I think between kind of going through here, you should be able to potentially find some that maybe just are a little bit more clear. Again, I wouldn't use the modern section. These are basically video game fonts. But some of the Celtic ones can potentially be okay. It might be something to think about. But yeah, I think at least what I'm looking at right now, that's probably the biggest thing that I would work to improve. Let's see, I believe the size on all these is consistent. I mean, let's see. Depending on if you want these to maybe have more of an ancient kind of a look, I'll throw out one more quick suggestion for you. I'll open up one of these in Photoshop. It would work on all of them, but I'll just do one for now. Let's see. But this might be another thing that we can do to kind of just add some additional layer of mood and atmosphere into it. Is that if you were to do a Google search for like an old paper texture, and find like, it depends. If you want a lot of mood and atmosphere, grab a fairly aged, crazy looking piece of paper. You can get quite extreme with it. But if you want something that's a little bit more subtle, I'll do two, so you guys can see the difference between these. We'll do that one, maybe we'll do this one. I'm going to just go ahead and copy that. And this will be a fairly extreme one. Oh, shoot. All right, I'm going to use I should have clicked one level further to get the full high res one. So this is a low res image, not the best to be using in this situation. Let's see here. So if we drop that on top of the design and then set the blending mode from normal to multiply, we get something like this. Now, again, I knew that was
That's
too
cool.
extreme because it was a really extreme texture. So if you find that it's maybe too much, just drop the opacity a little bit, and you can kind of let it sit a little bit more. But I actually kind of didn't mind that. I think it's kind of a cool look. I did have one more. We'll do a little bit more of a subtle one here. Again, I'm gonna just grab the low res one just for sake of speed. It's a super small one. Again, I don't want to mislead guys. Don't ever grab a small image and blow it up like this. I'm just doing it because I'm trying to move fast with the time limit that we have. But even just that, just sort of that subtle texture on there. It adds a nice layer of it, and I think it will kind of take some of the almost the polish off of these beautiful, like high-res modern photos.
Yeah.
Something
yeah,
to
that's
think
a good
about.
idea. Yeah,
But
I'll try it.
I think the first thing is maybe find a more legible font. And the second thing would be if you're digging the look of the parchment or the old paper, just literally do a Google search for old paper texture. Okay?
Yeah.
Fantastic
I'll
start
try
on these. These will with the tweak to the type and maybe that texture, they'll make for wonderful banners.
Thanks.
Let's see here. Cool. All right, Chaz, let's give yours a look here next.
Mine's only got one page to it, so and I have it all on different layers.
Okay, cool. Nice. Let's see. All right. Okay. Cool. Let's some of that kind of run through these one more time. I definitely like that you're using the logo as another mechanism to kind of like show the evolution of the band, as well as like the full pictures of the band. I mean, between the logos, the pictures, that does a wonderful job in itself. Because even if you don't necessarily know, again, being a fan of Metallica, I understand where you're going with it in terms of like listing the names of the changing bass players and what that really kind of meant for the band. But even if you're not familiar with that, looking at the images of them getting older and the progression of the logo, I think that helps tell a story as well. Let's see here.
It's a little hard to see, but actually I have a background there too with you can see it and it's on all of them. I did it. It's like the M design, one of their maybe I need to darken that up a little.
Let me my monitor is as bright as it gets. I mean, I don't see, at least on my monitor.
It's a pattern that I put in the background.
Okay. Is it that like Metallica, like the M repeating?
Yeah, that's
okay,
flipped
cool.
around.
Yeah.
It almost looked like a Chinese star looking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe consider making that a little bit
A little
more
dark.
obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because
I wanted it to be subtle, so but yeah, maybe I should make it a little bit.
Yeah, because right now it's so subtle that it just, at least on my screen, it doesn't show.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe one more thing to consider is that not that they all have to be the same treatment in terms of the image, but I'm almost wondering if what these would look like if the image of the band on each one was black and white. Like this. The reason why I'm suggesting that is on this page, the logo really acts as like the focal point. Here, I mean, the red of this Metallica certainly pops, but it would obviously add a little bit of consistency to things too. And I do feel like that there would be the opportunity within the individual pages to have full color images if you want. Something to try. Not saying you have to do it after you. I think here's what's going to happen, Chaz. If you do make them black and white on all of them, you're going to know whether or not it was better or not,
Right.
and if it ends up being better, leaving the images here in color, so be it, no worries at all. But yeah, I think between increasing the visibility of the pattern in the background and maybe going with black and white, you should be okay. I think the only other suggestion I'll have for you is let's maybe move this type treatment into the middle, just to.
I had it in the middle and it didn't look right, so I kicked
Yeah.
it to the right.
Okay.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
could put it back and see.
Yeah.
'Cause-
I mean, it's to me, it's not a deal breaker, but it was really
Yeah.
about the only other thing that I saw that was not consistent, because they're nicely
Right.
done chess. I mean, I don't have much otherwise to offer you. So again, for certainly make the pattern in the background pop, maybe
Right.
black and white, maybe this gets centered. Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. Nice work on these.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see here. All right, Carlos, let's give yours a look next. And again, I have to be probably a little bit quicker on these because we only got about 45 minutes of time left. I don't know if I've been as diligent about the 5-minute mark as I need to be. So bear with me, guys. We're gonna get fast and furious with these. All right, let's see here. All right, so Carlos, if I remember correctly, yours delved into the different like depths of the sea potentially. Cool. So I would, let's see, I would definitely, even though this last one, I get kind of where you're going with this. It's underwater, it's dark, but this text is awful difficult to see. I would probably recommend going with a color on that is, something like that. And if you want to go really, if you want to go darker with it, I think you can. It can be a dark green or a dark color, but ultimately we need to be able to actually read it. And I do think that this is a nice dark image. The dark rectangle, all those elements work, but that one certainly needs some boost. These, let's see. I mean, maybe on Seed Life, we can maybe add some kind of a tagline or something under it. I don't know if you've thought about it yet, like what this website might actually be called, like Sea Life, like by the depth, or I don't know. We've got to kind of work on that verbiage a little bit, but it does feel, I don't know, it feels like it's maybe missing something, whether it maybe as a tagline, maybe an icon or something, something that might represent Sea Life. Something on that one. I think it's such a minimal image as compared to these others that have a lot going on. This is another one that maybe the type could use a little bit more punch or a little bit more sort of separation in the background. So whether it's either darkening the rectangle and maybe lightening up the text just a bit. I mean, it doesn't need too much, but I'm just sort of picking one of the lighter colors that are present here. We can kind of poke around. That's not too bad. Although maybe still a little bit on the dark side. But yeah, hopefully that's kind of coming across. We can always dull that down a little bit. It doesn't have to quite be that strong, but something to, let me undo that and redo it. So, yep. Yeah, something to add that little extra kick. In the case of this one and that deep sea one, I don't know how to pronounce that, a photic zone, those two, that'll take you all of a few seconds to tweak because we're just talking about text color. But again, I do feel like here we probably need something, whether it's maybe a slightly more intricate image or something, tagline, maybe an icon, something. A wonderful place for you guys to go to get like free icons would be iconmonster.com. That's a good one. They have thousands and thousands of free vector icons. Something like that might work for you. Okay, but I think you're close. So if you'd like me to revisit this one before next week, if you make a tweak to it and you're just not sure, send it on over. The others, I think it'll take you no time at all to tweak the color of the type on those last two. All right, cool. Good start on those colors. All right, let's see. Catherine, let's give yours a look here next. Shoot, hang on. Cool. So a few things on these, Catherine. Yeah, let me open these in preview. All right. So we want to be careful about images like this. It feels stretched. It feels like it was pulled and distorted from the left and the right. Compared to this image, the symmetry or the proportions on his head tell me that this image was stretched. Maybe this one was as well. He definitely feels wider than he does here. So we definitely do not want to stretch images. You know, if anything, we would just work to find a larger size image. When you guys are using, let's say if you're finding these with like Google Images, just a quick tip. I'm using that for a website like this. When you guys go to images, go to tools, go to size, have it retrieve large images for you. And you should find stuff that is, you know, easily going to fit within a 960 pixel wide banner. So you may have to replace those background images on this one and this one. I think we should probably discuss any type though at this point. Like, I actually really like the wildlife red panda logo here. This is cool. I'd love to see you use that. I would recommend though using it on all of the banners though, then in the same location. Probably needs some slightly different positioning. The amount of space you have here kind of looks about 1/4 of an inch. We probably want about the same padding up top here as we have here, or vice versa. So this logo is just a little bit too close to the right side of the image. Let's maybe bump that over a little bit. I think from there, if we're going to include some type like this on a header or banner, I'd love to see that on all of them. So thinking a little bit about what those pages are you're going to have, and then just, you know, again, be consistent in terms of the font and the color that you're using there and all of those. But this is a nice touch. And I think that, again, with the logo in the corner and a properly scaled image, I think you'll be in good shape. So, you know, really 3 things to think about there, but none of them are terribly time consuming at all. I think this will be a fairly quick series of tweaks for you.
Okay, sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, Gurpreet, let's give yours a look next. Okay, so let's see. All right, so I recall this from last week being a website on UV treatment. Let's see here. Okay, cool. So this is actually my favorite image out of all of them because I feel like it really brings some mood and atmosphere versus like this image here. It really is these treatments, but maybe rather than seeing specific treatments, maybe we can see an image of somebody applying some product to their skin, for example. The other issue here is that this image is definitely low quality. And if I blow it up, again, and you guys see the artifacting, this is very common on the web. And again, it signifies that the person that took this image and put it on the web did not know how to properly save that. That's how these images get destroyed like that. But maybe we lean on images that are closer to this, where we're seeing somebody, again, maybe somebody applying some product to their skin. I don't necessarily mind seeing a beauty product series of images like this. But what I lean more towards with this is that it's not, even though we see some names, it's not necessarily like this where we've got all these big logos and product, information, because we can focus if we've got images with less type on them, we're going to focus our eye on the type that you add and not the type that's on the actual products. This could work as well, but I would probably take out the 12 to 18 month type on these. You can just color that out with a white brush in Photoshop. And the final thing that I would suggest is we want to be consistent with the font. I actually prefer this font compared to these. I don't know, to me these days when I see Arial, when I see Impact, I immediately just think of meme, type, because that's the meme typeface. Versus this one is, I don't know, I think it just has a little bit more of a classy upscale look as compared to Impact.
Sir, I have a question.
Sure.
Like when I put the larger image, like a good quality image, is change my pixel. So in the instruction you told us like we have to put 900 height.
Correct.
Yeah, but when I try to put good image, it increase my pixel. So that's why I upload that kind of image.
Okay, we just need to find images that are 960 pixels or larger. Okay, so we never
Okay.
want to find a small image and blow it up. Rather, we want to find larger images and work down. So just for example, like okay, so we would potentially search for images, and like I did earlier, we want to go to tools and make sure that we set our size for large images. That's just going to give us nice high quality images. So here, like for example, I'll maybe find this. So this image is 2000 pixels by 1400 pixels. That's more than large enough. So here, I'm going to just open this image in a new tab. Copy that. No, this is a WebP image. It may not paste into Photoshop. Let's see. In fact, I'm almost certain it's not. But if I were to do like a 960 pixel banner, by let's say maybe 360, and I paste, yeah, you can see that this image is much, much larger and very easy to shrink down. Yep. Of course, I just distorted it. Let's undo that. Cool. So yes, even though the size group that I mentioned is 960, it's an easy solution. We just need to find images that are larger than 960 to begin with. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Cool. Let's see here. Moving forward, let's take a look. Kyle, yours next. Okay, cool. Let's give these a look. I'm liking what's happening with like the gradient treatment on these in terms of using that as just a nice way to stylize things. The font I think is really appropriate. I like that very much. Maybe, I guess my only suggestion is maybe rather than saying home, maybe we can put like, give the website a name. Because this is the thing, this is the bang that kind of communicates this. If this were a professional project, you guys would all be working with like client logos and stuff. And I get it, I understand you guys don't have those, but it'd be awesome if upon getting here with looking at the banner, if I had a clear idea of where I was rather than just home. Okay? That really is my main suggestion. And I'm a big fan of the images that you chose, the consistency of these. Maybe on this one, maybe not necessarily using a gray-ish gradient in the background, but maybe something with a little bit more color. Could be purple, could be green. Well, actually, you're already in purple, so maybe it could be green, could be orange, yellow, something perhaps that, again, more or less tints the color, like what's happening. These are gorgeous. I love the way that these colors are interacting. But here we don't quite get that color interaction because of the overlay. That's it. I mean, it shouldn't take you very long to tweak this background and potentially think of a name of this that you want to just replace the word home with. But these are very nicely done. Let's see. I'm not sure who these are. Anytime I don't have my attendance book with me here, but anytime the owner name is a nickname.
Oh, mine. Oh, sorry. It's because I put it on my personal account.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
My bad.
Let's see. Okay. Cool. Let's see. Oh, so this was the website on racing simulators, right? Yeah, I think so. Cool. Right. Nice. You know, again, from a consistency standpoint, there's some wonderful things happening in here. Maybe consider one of two things. I would either go all white with the header type, because there's just really one that has color in it, or the opposite way would be maybe adding a color to the type that's different for each one. Yeah, but it feels almost like an outlier when there's just one that has color. So that would be suggestion one. I think my only other suggestion would be maybe consider having the type remain the same size for all of these. So I love, as I'm clicking between graphics and sim titles and gameplay, the type is all the same size and essentially in the same spot. But when we get here, there's just like this big sort of history. So I feel like that one could maybe be shrunk down to be the same size as the others. Let's see, would this be the one for the very first page?
Yeah, that would be for the first page.
Cool. So in that case, if you wanted to keep it bigger and maybe we treat it more like a logo, because it's a similar situation to what I just was talking about a moment ago with Kyle's. On the first page, if we're just getting like one word, it doesn't really tell us so much like where we're at. So I guess if I'm coming to your website, I kind of want to know like history of what, like where am I? So maybe like history of, you know, I don't know what do you want to call it, but like history of racing simulators or something along those lines. And that could just be additional type just sort of living on the bottom. I'm not saying it has to say a racing simulation, but I'll use that for right now. Not sure what's going on there. And you know, again, maybe a block of color or something that maybe sits behind it. I love the color that you got here on the type. It could just be a matter of like, you know, grabbing that, getting yourself a nice block of color or something. You know, something a little extra. I need to make that block a little bit bigger or the text a little bit smaller. It's a little bit off, but I mean, you kind of see what I'm saying in terms of like making it feel a little bit, conveying a little bit more information to your audience.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So between making that tweak on the homepage here, and then either again, adding at least one more color to some of the headers or making them all white so that they feel consistent, I think you're good to go. It shouldn't take more than just a few minutes to make those tweaks. Nice job on those. Oh, actually, I'm glad I got to this one. I did want to mention, I do feel like we could be more consistent with the placement of these logos. So here we've got different amount of space between the bottom of the logo and the bottom of the page. This one and this one are probably pretty good, but this one here is dropped down. It's really close. It feels crammed. Something with Gran Turismo. So if you drop in a guide to use. You can place them all, you know, on those places then. So it looks like we could probably benefit as well from like maybe shrinking them down in size then as well to so there's just a little bit more room down there to kind of play around with. Oh, shoot, I grabbed one of the wrong things, but it's okay. Just as a quick example, obviously ignore the sim title drop shadow thing that I've got going on there, but this will you know, most certainly give you the ability to get all of these on a nice consistent sort of plane instead of you know, some of them being lower than the others. All right, again, even that shouldn't take very long to do, just a few moments. Okay, cool. All right, we're getting there, guys, but we are also running out of time. Let's see, we got 3 left. All right, we can do it. We can do it. Bella, let's give yours a look here next. Okay, cool. Let's see here. Ah, cool. I was waiting for that Hello Kitty to pop up. Cool, that's fun. I like that you're using that as sort of a little like kind of playful element to have, you know, have these characters popping up, popping out. I'm just gonna set this to trim view real quick, and there we go. Now we can kind of get a good idea of what's going on. So Hello Kitty's popped up there. Love the background elements, a lot of fun. Yeah, that's awesome. Nice job on those little characters. And then in this case, they're all down. Let's see, do I have a suggestion for you? I may not. Just maybe one thing. I feel like the black inside the text on Hello Kitty is maybe a little bit more contrast than it needs. Maybe consider either, if you want it to be dark, maybe consider like 75% gray. Just something where it's not quite as intense as it is there. Just to kind of take it back a little bit, especially since the others are relatively soft and pastel. When it was black, it just feels like very much kind of out of place compared to the others. I think it'll take you all of about, you know, a minute or so to find the color that you need for that. And this is done. Those are very well developed though. Nice job.
Thank you.
All right, gang. Home stretch here. Let's see. 2 more. All right, let's see here. All right, cool. Let's give all of these a look. Okay. Cool. All right. Couple of small suggestions here that I think will make a big difference in this. I would recommend first and foremost, and I'm gonna actually, maybe it might be easier for me to do this in Photoshop because I don't have access to the layers here. Although let's see, can I get to them? Can I get to more layers? Depends on how this is possible. Oh yeah, I got them. All right, good. I do feel like the text on these in the bottom corners really could use an increase in size. Thanks, appreciate it. Otherwise, I mean, those are important messages that you've got down there. I think that at the size that they were, they just weren't being seen. So an increase in size there will help. I also feel like with these icons, like the crucifix in this case, could probably just use an extra pixel or 2 of thickness. So let me see how this is set up. Let's see, I'm looking for the properties inspector. There we go. Yeah, so like right now, the stroke on this is 1/4 of a pixel. So this is actually a good opportunity for us to have a conversation about graphics to the web, although I got to make it a short one. Illustrator can work in sub-pixel units because it's vector graphics. It doesn't rely on pixels. However, when we save these images for the web and put them into your website, they will be converted to pixel-based images. And there is nothing smaller than 1 pixel in raster-based imagery. So it will not know how to deal with a 1/4 pixel or 1/4 point stroke. That crucifix, that icon will not show up. We've got to use at least single point, imagery. But I would even take that a step or 2 further and make it a little bit larger. So yeah, I think between increasing the size of the type, increasing the size of the icons on these, I think that will make a really nice difference. And the great thing about this is we're talking about stuff that takes, I mean, literally it took me seconds to do that. It'll take you seconds to do that as well. And you're going to get some nice benefits from that. But again, making that larger, whatever size you use for one, I would use the same size for all of them. And again, just take a few moments, increase those strokes to at least 1 pixel, if not 2. And there we go. Cool. Probably the same thing then for the text in the top corner, the part 1, part 2, etc. Okay. Love the typeface, love the composition on these. But again, correct for those few small things and you'll be in great shape.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And let's see, using my stuff here. Come on, let's see my stuff go. Should I close Google Drive or minimized it? I'm not sure. I'm losing it here, guys. Let's see. All right. Let me reopen up Google Drive. Okay. All right, let's see here. I messed up the names here on this. Let's see. Shoot. All right, let's see. Well, I know, Kathy, I know we have to look at yours still. So let's do that. I think that was the last set in there. Ah, that's right, the Florida Wild Pigs. Okay, let's see here. Okay. All right, one suggestion on these, I think is, one suggestion I'm going to make, Kathy, I think is going to apply quickly and easily to all of these. I'm going to make a suggestion. I'm actually going to Photoshop to do this, that we add a little bit more separation in proximity between the name of the website and the name of the page, as well as in just the visual hierarchy. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here in Photoshop. Yep, that's Illustrator. All right, so let's see here. All right, so in this case, the proximity of these are quite close to each other. And the size of them are also very close to each other. There's not a lot that separates these because of those two issues. I would recommend potentially treating this as the name of the site, and maybe it can always just sort of go in the top left corner. and then treating this as the name of the page, or something I'm guessing you're doing here on these, and maybe putting it in the bottom right corner, and maybe even being willing to change the size of one of them. I would probably recommend that the name of the page is the thing that increases in size. But now there's a clear difference in separation between these, and I would really probably handle all of them in that same way. Once you know what the size of one of these is, like we can kind of look at the size real quick and see. So that is, I won't be able to change. I don't have the font installed, so I can't just type in that number. But once you get one of them set, Kathy, let's say it's 86 points, you can just go to all of these and just make that type in the bottom corner 86 points, and they'll be all consistent.
Okay.
But I do feel like that's going to, again, just really help add some order to it, and visually without having to think too hard. If we keep seeing the logo up in the top corner, we're going to realize in no time at all that that's the name of the web page, and that this is the page itself that we're on.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't think that'll take you too long. The images themselves work out pretty good. I mean, the colors on these pigs are crazy. I had no idea that they were that they look like that.
Yeah, they could be striped, spots.
Yeah, wow. Cool. This is one of the sites I'm really looking forward to, just like reading about these and learning about these animals. I mean, it's just and it makes sense. It's a wild pig, right? It's different from my, I guess, preconceived notion of what like a pig looks like. But I guess I don't have much experience around these sort of animals. So and yeah, they're really wild looking. This is cool. All right, awesome. Yeah, that shouldn't take you very long at all, Kathy.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, guys, let me bounce back one more time over here and just make sure that we had an opportunity to look at everything that was submitted. Yeah, I believe we got all these. If I'm mistaken, let me know. Just a few minutes to kind of wrap up comfortably here. So moving forward into next week, a few things that you guys you want to have kind of keeping in the back of your mind. I would absolutely love to see you all make the revisions and changes to those banners by next week, just because the next several steps on the project are all code-based. And it seems like you guys, while most of you are very much beginners, you certainly know your way around Photoshop or Illustrator enough. You can get in there and make those tweaks that I just made fairly fast. Keeping in mind that this is a recorded session, you can always go back and watch those techniques that I just did as many times as you need to. As always, it'll take me about an hour or so to get this video extracted out of Zoom and compressed and then uploaded. But as soon as I can, I will get the link posted. And like all the others, it'll go inside the Zoom recordings area here. Again, for next week, really your homework boils down to the part 3, the style sheet, our style guide spec sheet. And again, I implore you please to watch that video that I made because it will walk you directly through that process of completing this part of the project. So this is the actual assignment sheet itself. This is the link to the walkthrough. And again, there is a couple of tutorials as well here for those of you who are interested in using Google Fonts. I would definitely recommend incorporating Google Fonts. I will, since we have a few minutes, I can show you a tip or two on using Google Fonts. So Google Fonts, let's see how many they have these days. They have got, they are, at this point, they've got 1,451 free fonts. I mean, not all of them are great. Most of them are, but it's not the easiest site to sort through compared to, let's say, DeFont. It's more or less a matter of choosing the style of font. So serif, obviously being fonts with serifs, so those little sort of feet. Sans serif being without serifs, so no feet. Display are going to be those kind of funky, crazy fonts, which aren't always the best for the web. but you know, they're there and some are good. Like, I mean, Alpha is a great font. So it really just depends on what you're looking for there. Handwriting, again, can be a little bit funky for the web. I would probably stay away from these for the most part, but again, some are okay. I mean, some of them are okay, but just avoid the really swoopy ones. They don't translate well to the web. And there's monospace, which are very much like your minimal sans serif based type of fonts that have that sort of you know, a digital look to them. But when you find some stuff, like let's say here, I'm going to search for serif. You can also search for font properties. So if you want, number of styles refers to how many fonts are in the family. The more you go up with this, the more robust the family is, meaning that there will be, you know, thin, medium, bold, extra bold, black versions of all of these. So if you're interested in finding really robust families, that can be a parameter you set. You can set it to thickness. If you're looking for very thick fonts, bring that up. If you're looking for very thin fonts, bring that down. Slant would be the equivalent of italicized fonts. Yeah, they don't have many of those. In fact, yeah, there's really not any of note here. Width refers to how condensed or expanded the fonts are. The wider you make it, this would be, these are what are considered expanded fonts, meaning they're more wide. Versus these are more condensed. And again, there's not a great, these last couple of sliders are not, they're not awesome. But I will say that if you're looking for some basic fonts, then let's say I'm looking for a sans serif font, we can, you know, immediately start finding some good things. To use these though, it's pretty straightforward. Watch that that link in there, but you're essentially coming in here, and what it will walk you through the process of doing is, let's see here. Oh, well, the first thing I'd have to do is select which styles I want. Again, the video will walk you through that before it will generate the code. But it basically just gives you a little line of code that you use. You put that code into the header of your website, and then you can start using them in your style sheet. It's easy to do. First time you do it, you're gonna be like, wow, okay. In fact, it'll be one of the easiest things you do all semester long if you decide to use those Google fonts. But again, that will really add some nice options for you guys. Okay. All right, before we wrap up and I stop the recording, any questions that you guys have at all in terms of what you are working on for next week?
The only thing that we need to turn in next week is the HTML and CSS code, and then our revisions.
Correct.
Okay.
Cool. And as always, guys, if you do find that maybe over the course of the week you have any questions, as always, you can reach out to me. I think most of you reached out to me about the only other issue I'll bring up real quick. Let's see. I did post in the announcement area here some of the screenshots, especially on the first one from Code Academy. 5 of you submitted your submissions, but you didn't name your file, your name at all. So if you look in the grade book, 5 of you on that first Code Academy project received zeros. I didn't know who the heck those were. So please, if one of those is yours, rename or resubmit the file, and then please email me. If you do that before this Thursday, essentially meaning tomorrow, I will regrade that for you. Also, another thing real quick, in the grade book, I added the proposal for project 1, but I have not graded it yet. So all of you right now for project 1, part 1, all of you, it will show as a 0. A handful of you reached out to me today and you're like, oh my God, I totally submitted this. Why do I have a 0? It's just because if I add a category to the grade book, before I do, like if I don't put a grade in there, it will automatically default to a 0. Okay. I'll be grading that over the next few days, so you guys will know where you stand with that. In fact, I'll be grading the banners as well over the next couple of days, so you guys will know where you stand for for project one, but I just wanted to let you guys know as a class that that's what's going on, just in case you look in the grade book and like, oh no, I totally submitted that. Like, what happened? Okay, so no worries. A few more days, the project one proposals will be graded, and then that will no longer see it as 0. But please, for the Code Academy submissions, please make sure that your name, your last name, is part of the file name, so that I know who to give credit for. Okay. All right, guys. Well, have a fantastic week. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and stop our meeting. And again, I will publish this stuff as soon as I can. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of the day. It looks like the sun is kind of coming out there and things are looking good.
All right. Have a good day.
Have a good
You
one.
guys too.
Can
Yeah.
I take you for a minute?